You're watching PEGRI TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
Welcome everybody to the Four Corners, brought to you by the Official Wrestling Museum. We are your hosts. I am Angel, and I'm joined by the Official Wrestling Museum's Hall of Famer,
No Live.
and we are here once again with that QR code for you to scan to help us make a National Pro Wrestling Day. Without you, it's going to be a lot harder, so let's make it happen because you're the fans, and that's what wrestlers do it for, it's the fans. It takes about 10 seconds, and it's totally free to do. Before we jump into this show here today, we have a few more people writing to us, telling us about their picks. We have Devin from Glen Falls, New York. He wrote, my picks for who should be a King of the Ring: LA Knight, Bob Holly, Ludwig Borger, Diesel.
Wow, Bob Holly and Ludwig Borger. Okay, I mean, everyone's got their picks.
Right? You know what, though? It might have been interesting if Bob Holly would have won. I don't know if it would have been, he might have had like the Billy Gunn type of run with it. But, you know what I mean?
I mean, the only time
Ludwig
Bob
Borger,
Holly,
though, that's
well,
not
Ludwig Borger, I don't know.
King Borger.
Bob Holly got his match against Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble, and I remember everyone crapping on it because it's like Bob Holly. But then again, for me, I was always like, well, it's the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble sells itself. That's where you do a match like that, you know?
True. Adam from North Attleboro, Massachusetts. I wanted to send in my 4 picks for what irks me about pro wrestling. When they have shows on at the same time, no more Saturday morning wrestling. Yeah, that irks us too. When they flip camera shots 100 times in 10 seconds. Referees not going into the WWE Hall of Fame. Well, they had Tim White going, but I can kind of see that. I mean, there's been some really great referees that definitely deserves their recognition for sure. And Nick from Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Here are my 4 picks for NWO that was a waste of time. Vincent, the Harris Brothers, Ted DiBiase, The Disciple.
I agree with 3. I don't agree with Ted DiBiase. I think that took a turn. I think at the very beginning, it made perfect sense. But then once Bischoff came in, Ted DiBiase's role became non-relevant.
Yeah,
but at first,
I agree with
to
that
have him
too.
be the guy that was backing the NWO money-wise, that was like, definitely made sense. And then once you had the guy who was running WCW in on it, it then became, well, what was DiBiase really doing? So.
That's true. Well, I want to say thank you to Devin, Adam, and Nick for sending in. If anybody else wants to send in your picks, you can always watch past episodes on our YouTube channel. You go off the officialwrestlingmuseum.com, click on it to our network, and you can see all our past shows from not only this show, but all the shows we do, and special shows like Down the Aisle and other interviews and everything else we have. So let's talk about this show. What are we talking about today, sir?
So this episode of the 4, what we're throwing into the corners this week is patriotic characters or gimmicks. Again, not necessarily what we think are the best or worst, just what I'd like. Maybe I want to hear this guy's opinion on something. So over the years, there's been many different patriotic characters. Some maybe have only lasted one night. Some maybe they built their career off it. So there's a lot to pick from over the years. And one thing we didn't specify is, are we going with just American patriotic characters? Because in my mind, that's what I was going with. But
that's what I thought. When they told us with this, that's what I was thinking that we would do. But that's
as I was thinking last night, right? I was like, not because I think. So you're under the assumption American Patriots.
That's what I was thinking too.
So then I'll throw this out there then. As I'm thinking last night, as one of our watchers had just said, Ludwig Borga, you have Yokozu. You have those Japanese or foreign like Fritz von Erich. You have these other patriotic characters from other countries. But I was just, because of 4th of July,
Right.
I'm thinking American patriotic. So that's what we're gonna. We'll make
what I
a
was
gentleman's
thinking.
agreement and go
Yeah.
with. Okay.
Well, that's what we'll
All
do.
right. So
for
do you
sure.
want to throw what patriotic character?
I'm
you wanna-
gonna say Hacksaw. Right off
I
the
think
bat.
that
It
has to be like the number one. Like when you think of America, you think of Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I mean, the guy, even to this day, will go do a signing. I don't think he works anymore, but if he, I mean,
Yeah.
up until he'll go do any show. When they brought him back on Raw, not too, maybe about 8 years or 10 years ago or so. Remember they brought him back. He was doing some jobs on Raw
Yep.
for people. Still would get that crowd to USA. I mean, all it takes is one Hacksaw Jim Duggan, one time for him to go USA, and the whole crowd does it. And you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I think when you think of America, that is the top.
That's
so
it.
I'm already going to say he's
in
going
one of my
into the
corners.
finals.
He's in the finals.
He was going to be one of my picks, but I'll try to pick someone different in this. I think another one I want to go. Well, do you want to say anything about Hacksaw? Because I did all the talking.
Well, I think you nailed it right off the bat. There's nobody more that can get the crowd to chant USA more than Hacksaw Jim Duggan. He is very much for this country.
Yeah.
He's very for the troops. He's very much for, just giving back. And like you said, today, everybody, it's either USA or who from Hacksaw Jim Duggan. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he's just, you can't talk patriotic anything about professional wrestling without thinking Hacksaw in your mind.
Yeah. I don't want to. I guess I'm going to throw the softball up there for the first one.
Oh, boy.
Hulk Hogan.
You know what?
No.
I was wondering if we were going to, I thought of him.
Early Hogan.
Early Hogan, yep.
He would come out. He had the American Made shirt, Made in
Yep.
America. Obviously, he took the theme song. Well, you had the U.S. Express was using Real American. Hogan had a different theme song, the one that he used for Hulk Hogan's Rocket Wrestling.
Yep.
But then, and he was using Eye of the Tiger, but then started using Real American. And he was the big American hero. I mean, yeah, he beat the Sheik. He didn't have necessarily the anti-American guys that he was feuding with over the years. He did
do Sarge.
He did have, well, I was going to say
Sarge,
towards then, yeah. So so he was like all about America. He just didn't have, outside of Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, his villains weren't just the anti-Americans.
Right.
But he was always about America. WrestleMania versus Sergeant Slaughter 7. There was that awesome painted picture where he's holding the flag, and
Yes,
I
yep.
believe
That's even a magazine cover.
Well, and I think that I just saw something on Facebook. I think he now has his own beer out, and it's like Hulk Hogan's Real American Beer, and that
think
is
so,
the
I'm not
logo,
sure.
that
Yeah.
picture, and it's an awesome picture, and just remembering a lot of like pictures back in the day of Hogan, and there would always be like, I remember the 1987 trading cards, and it came with the stickers, and on the back was the puzzle piece that you would do, and I believe it was Hogan holding the American flag. So, yeah,
That's
Hogan
cool.
was always an American character.
So my next pick, if we're going to go patriotic, its name's right in there. It's the Patriot.
Yeah, Patriot Del Wilkes.
Yep. It's really...
I knew he was going to get picked. You know what? He hit for the WWE. I mean, he was bigger. He was in Global. Did most of his stuff in Global Championship Wrestling. That's where I learned from him. Had done some WCW stuff.
Stars and Stripes.
Yeah. And but when he finally did get to WWF, it was right at the right time, because I don't know if it would have worked as well. But when he came in, it was during the Hart Foundation Canadian versus American feud. So he really hit
He did.
at that right
Perfect
time.
timing.
Very short time there, maybe how long was he there? Only like 6 months, maybe.
I think so, because I think he got hurt.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, he had some issues too outside the ring. But I remember them saying like the reason he left was because they threw coffee in his face or something. But I think he hit right at the right time. I mean his finisher move, the Uncle Slam.
Yep.
I remember
that.
I remember the episode he came out. I was over at one of my uncle's houses, and I believe it was in San Antonio, Texas.
I think it was
Shawn
San-
Michaels came out,
Yep.
and then Sid came out, and then they're like, "Who's going to be his partner?" And then the Patriot came out, and they were like, "The Patriot." There was no build up to him or anything. He just showed up.
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, I knew who he was because of Global and stuff like that, but. Yeah, he just showed up out of nowhere, and it's like, the Patriot, this youngster from...
youngster, yep.
But, the Patriot's a good pick, obviously. Anything you want to say extra about him?
Oh, I just think, in the sense of the patriotic character, his gear spoke for that character. With Duggan, he got the crowd involved with the USA chants. Patriot didn't really need to do that because he wore it. You knew what he represented. And I think what you said was right. He did have a short-lived stand. He did get his own figure with WWE in the Slammers. So that was cool that he got that.
Yeah, and the thing about that figure was actually the Owen Hart figure was reused. They used the same figure, the head.
Oh, yeah.
Head. They used the Patriot mask for the Blue Blazer figure. Yeah. Patriot, I think, and I think that Honky Tonk Man bought the Patriot gimmick, and he bought the gimmick, and at independent shows, Tom Brady was doing the Patriot gimmick.
Yeah, he was.
And Tom Brady would be like, I go out and I wrestle as Tom Brady, then I go out and I wrestle as the Patriot. But I think the Honky Tonk Man owns the Patriot gimmick. So
I think I heard something about that, too.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
For wrestlers, it's supposed to be dumb. These guys are smart. Mm-hmm. So I think
Who's your next pick?
Again, another softball. I think
Softball.
Sergeant Slaughter. I know he turned heel and he was the anti-American, but he came back. I want my country back, which was awesome to do. I think that, and I know he was a heel drill sergeant, but then when you had the Cold War and it was him versus Iron Sheik, I really think that had Hogan not come in, Slaughter was that top guy. You know what I mean?
I could see that. He probably would have been that top guy in that
And
spot.
I also think had the wrestling, I'm curious to see, so again, the reason Slaughter left WWF was because he wanted, and that's another thing. Sergeant Slaughter is Mr. G.I. Joe, which a real American hero. So, and the reason why Slaughter left back in the 80s was because he wanted to do G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe wanted to release the figure of him. Well, WWF had the licensing deal with LJN. G.I. Joe was Hasbro, and so there was a whole issue there. And Slaughter left and went. I think for him, he probably did make the right choice because I think that there's a lot of people that know him as Sergeant Slaughter from G.I. Joe, even more. I'm not saying more than wrestling, but there is a group of people that know him. He is Sergeant Slaughter, the wrestler, but he's Sergeant Slaughter from G.I. Joe. And that's their Sergeant Slaughter. He's not the wrestler Sergeant Slaughter. He's G.I. Joe Sergeant Slaughter. And again, as we just said, he was already shifted to, he was the number 2 babyface. He was not going to be the number 1. And at that time, Hogan was not going to lose that belt, so he wouldn't have been the heavyweight champion at that time. He did get his championship run. That's when he turned heel and did the anti-American thing, which is another whole story. But I loved that whole storyline. People said that it was in poor taste. I don't know. I think it was great.
I agree in the sense that I think Sergeant Slaughter would have been that guy if Hogan wasn't there, 100%. I was kind of tossed on if I was going to pick him or not, because, granted, he plays the role of the Army soldier, but he never gave the vibe for the country. It was just the costume that he put on. Mm-hmm. And it's also come out, too, that he's not really a soldier. And that was a big controversy, too. So that could be where that, so if you look...
That was last year. I don't understand that he takes all this heat for not really being in the Army. It's like, He's playing a character.
No, absolutely. You're right with that.
Is gonna take heat for not being
Well, no, and you're right.
an airplane pilot?
Yeah, he shouldn't be taking heat because it's a character. But if you look at him with Sergeant Stryker, you can see the difference in how the character is portrayed because Stryker, that's him on a daily basis. He serves. He has that background. He has that knowing and the passion and the sacrifices where he's playing the character. And I think, to me, that's what that character lacked, was that actual experience. And I think that would have brought more Patriotic out. So that's why I wasn't sure if I was going to say him. My other guy, and I don't know if it's going to really count, but I think what he stood for was the American way.
It can be that too, because let's face it, not every patriotic character has to go out going, oh, USA, and wearing it. It can be American values. And
Exactly. So I'm going to go with Dusty Rhodes.
Okay, that was going to be...
That was going to be one of yours?
I can change mine, but that was going to be... I mean, the American dream. I mean, he's
Right
the American
there.
dream.
But, and forget even the nickname of him. What he stood for, the son of a plumber and all this type of stuff to build himself up and to get there. That's what patriotic is all about. The soldiers serving our country, what our country stands about, that you're able to be free and to be able to, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to go on this whole preaching thing of what the country's supposed to be, but Dusty Rhodes was just that. You know what I mean? And I think he's just, for me, it's a perfect fit for this.
This third one, I'm going to throw it out there. Not one of my favorites, but Lex Luger was obviously...
See, he was another one that I was thinking.
Yeah, my problem with Lex Luger is that it wasn't him. Like, even then, like, he had been the narcissist. And then Hogan left the company.
Yep.
And they needed someone to take that role and be the new American hero. And they picked Lex Luger based on his looks. He didn't have the charisma. He did not have the people skills. That wasn't who he was. He didn't like going around hugging people, kissing babies. Then they did the whole Lex Express thing.
Yep.
And you can see in Lex Luger that wasn't him. You can just see that it was forced. And he just didn't have that connection with the people. Hogan built that connection before Hulkamania. Like, he had started it in the AWA. Like, that connection was already built. And Lex Luger was a heel. And all of a sudden, to become the Mr. America, he shows up, comes in the helicopter. And I remember watching that. Do you remember watching that?
I do remember watching that.
Did you, now before you could see who it was, did you have in your mind who you thought it was?
I figured it had to be somebody that's on the actual roster.
I thought it was Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Because at the time, it was just after Hogan left.
Yep.
So you didn't
He
know.
was coming back and
Yeah.
stuff. Yep.
I figured it's Hulk Hogan coming. And then Lex Luger comes out, and it's like, Lex Luger? He was just a bad guy 2 weeks ago. And so he comes out, slams Yoko. Didn't even get the best slam, because Crush slammed him even more than that. It was more of a hip toss. But it's like, but you have to immediately, from that moment, be like, oh, Lex Luger, yay. It's manufactured.
Right.
It wasn't like Hogan that became organic.
And for the defense of Luger, and I 100% agree with everything you said about Luger. I do. But for his defense, like you said, he was coming in as a heel.
No.
And he was portrayed as his heel and like a character of very all by himself, the glamour of him, all that.
As Bobby Heenan said, narcissist.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So now he has to change everything up to be this face, to not be about his body, not to be about all of himself.
No.
You know what I mean? And it's a switch. And how you're getting it is by body slamming somebody that can't be body slammed. And now you got people cheering for you, but what's changed your opinion on everything? I think that's what made it a little tough for him to
And the Lex
get
Express
over.
never really...
I heard they canceled actual tour dates where
Of
he
Lex
was,
Express?
where
I know
he was going to go.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't... I know... I never went to it, but I know he came to Quincy, Mass., which was the next town over from me. I never went and saw him. But I was going to say one more thing about Lex Luger in the sense of... another thing was they build this up for him to get his match with Yokozuna. And he goes in SummerSlam and wins by countout. And then they throw this big celebration, and it's like, wait, We all know you can't win the title on a count out, so you look stupid.
Yeah.
Like, what's the big deal? And I think that whether they wanted to put the title on him or not, regardless, then have him lose by count out. You don't have him win and then celebrate like he won. It made him look stupid, and you couldn't. It's like you build him up, and now he doesn't get the title.
Get to that point.
I'm supposed to support this guy. So
it was weird. So the last guy, and this is hard too, because again, there's so many different patriotics, but you kind of, and I know I picked Dusty that didn't have
But
the looks.
you know, he was on my list though. So
Right, but you
Like,
try to think patriotic, what's easy to sell for the camera, people wearing the gear. I'm going to go with Constantine Creed.
oh, Consequences Creed.
What did I say, Constantine?
You said Constantine Creed.
I am
I don't
so
even know who
off.
that is. Consequences Creed from when he wore the gear in like TNA.
Yeah, I am so off. I'm so sorry, folks.
Who's Constantine Creed?
It's a character that I was thinking of upcoming shows.
Okay, I remember him coming out and he was wearing the like Apollo Creed gear.
Hey, at least I'm giving people to talk about stuff.
Yeah.
You know, But yeah, I think that was cool. You know, one thing with Woods, it was Xavier Woods, obviously. He's very much about giving respect to all different factions, not just professional wrestlers.
Right, video games.
Yeah.
I mean, that was obviously a tribute
TV
to
shows.
Apollo Creed.
Yeah, and so this I thought was really, really cool. And to be honest with you, he didn't do that bad of a job for what the character was, to be honest with you.
It's how I remember him before being Xavier Woods.
Yeah.
I remember him as Consequences Creed. So
Yep.
yeah.
So that's my four.
So before I do my final pick,
Okay.
I want to throw a couple quick
Honorables?
honorables. Yeah, John Cena, I think, could be one.
Yes, absolutely.
That is an honorable mention.
Yep.
Hulk Hogan, again, as Mr. America, was another one that could
Yeah,
be an
'cause it's
honorable
Mr.
mention.
Yeah.
Corporal Kirshner. Marcus Bagwell did do the Stars and Stripes thing, but I don't think necessarily I would have ever thrown him in there.
So you know who could be an honorable mention, and I think you're gonna be like, what? And I think we're gonna get a lot of feedback on that. Is Eugene.
Eugene?
See, that was the look I was hoping for, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because if you, and especially during that time period, okay, and even now too, but back in that time period, if you look at all the different countries, the United States of America was the country that would welcome and kind of showcase people with disabilities. With like the Special Olympics, with getting people out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Other countries would try to hide them and shun them. There's other countries that would even do worse to them. We're here in America, no, we're not shunning you. We're welcoming you. We accept you. We're friending you. And America was always that country to try to better. It's kind of like a smile-up challenge. Spread more smiles than hate in the world. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that.
I can see that in a
that
way.
you know what I mean? Like I said, it's a far fetch.
Yeah.
But it does kind
stretch,
of fall.
but I can see.
You know what I mean? That's
think
why the honorable mention.
One last honorable mention, obviously, Cody Rhodes. American Nightmare.
Oh yeah, duh. Yeah, makes sense.
So I would have probably picked Cody Rhodes, but I'm a pick
who are you picking?
Sergeant Stryker.
No, see, I didn't know we could do the indie guys.
Why not?
Because you said before we couldn't do
Oh,
that.
okay, well,
But you know what? No, we're gonna put him in
yeah.
because he's the official Wrestling Museum's.
It's a
Hall of
special
Famer.
occasion.
Yeah.
So
Well, if that was the case, he would have
Sergeant-
been my first pick.
All right.
And we've put him in a corner already.
So Sergeant Stryker, I mean, the reason why I would pick him is because you mentioned with Slaughter. Now, I'm not saying, I'm not trying to compare or anything,
Yep.
but you see the detail that Sergeant Stryker goes into where he's like, I can't wear this. This isn't a regulation.
Yeah.
I never want to be the guy to wear something and have an old veteran come out and say, hey, that's not like that's not official. He won't.
Yeah,
He'll shave
the attention to
everything.
detail
Yeah, everything
for
by
this
the book.
character
Yeah,
is
he that is who he is. He is an actual soldier. He just was gone for 3 weeks on his annual training. He just came back 2 days ago. So, Stryker. I mean, he's always, and when we've wrestled, he's always been comfortable playing that soldier. And well, not always comfortable. He's very shy at first, but
it's a natural thing that you can believe he's a soldier, because he is. He makes it come to life. He makes you want to invest into him. He makes you feel the passion of what he's performing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's where I was touching upon before between the two of them. You know, that's what I thought Sergeant Slaughter was missing, was that connection.
Well, Slaughter also
you
had
know,
the.
There'll be times when, not to cut you off,
Yeah.
we're in the locker room, we're working on some projects that we are going to be talking about. We know we keep saying it, but we are going to be bringing that up really, really soon. And, you know, he'll be in the locker room. He's like, yeah, I just got this patch and, you know, it's this way, but I had to wait for this time. And the excitement and what it means to him, and then what it means to bring it into another field, to bring the exposure of soldiers and the respect to it. It's
He's
just
always talking
awesome.
about any shows that we've done. He's always like, yeah, my unit's going to be coming here. and
Yeah.
there. So, going into, because I know we're running out of time, going
are.
into a final, we already threw Hacksaw in.
And Sergeant Strikers.
And I want to say Dusty Rhodes. I know you said him,
Yeah, I'll
but I was
definitely
going to
take
pick
Dusty
him.
all
I was going to
day.
pick him as well. You don't have to. It's not a soldier gimmick. It's an American patriotic gimmick. And what represents America better than wanting to live the American dream, fighting for that American dream?
Absolutely.
You know? So, and who would so you'd have to tell me again.
So you had Hulk Hogan, Sergeant Stryker,
Okay.
Sergeant Slaughter, Lex Luger. I had Creed, Rhodes, Patriot, and Duggan.
To me, honestly, I think Hogan.
I was going to say Hogan.
Okay.
You know, I mean, not NWO Hogan,
Right.
the early Hogan. I think, you know, because
Yeah.
I'm a real American.
right.
You know what I mean? And it just everybody was just behind him. And he was really much a symbol for the country.
You know, this real quick on Sting was, you know, he would come out sometimes American
Yeah.
face paint. Hulk Warrior did, and
Macho Man came out with
Steiner
the
Brothers,
gear.
yeah.
Like that's in fact when we do Happy 4th of July, we use Macho Man's picture.
And those are more of like when I said the patriotic thing. Those are more of one-time offs, maybe a couple times or so.
Right.
But so the final four are.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Sergeant Stryker,
Yeah.
the Hulk Hogan man himself, and the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Why don't you let us know what you guys think? Do you think we had a good pick here? Would you guys switch up our equation? Or would you turn around and say, you know what, you guys are way off, this is who we would throw in? Let us know, or anything from past episodes. We thank you very much for tuning in once again. Send your questions in for us for our hot tag, because we need you as well too for that. Check out Off the Ropes, Figures Are Us, free per view. And do that QR code, because without you, we can't make it happen. It takes about 10 seconds to do, totally free. Make it National Pro Wrestling Day. Anything else, my main man?
No, just come back next week and see what we throw in the corners.
Right? See you next week, guys. Ho!